What is going on, everybody? We're back on the channel with another mock draft. It's been probably a year since I've uploaded on this channel, but we're back. Wanted to do a quick mock just before the draft. So if you're seeing this is probably coming out. No, this is definitely coming out the day of the draft. I've been supposing what I wanted to do this draft in my head, but not actually committing to doing it until about an hour ago when I decided I wanted to do it. So here we are. And without further ado, let's get into it. I want to preface this, say, first of all, this is going to be a one round mock. Second of all, I'm not the biggest college football viewer. And so if you are relying on this for great takes about scheme and technique and visits and everything like that that leads into the draft process. That's not where you're going to find here. You're going to find some somewhat casual thoughts, but beliefs on the fit for certain players and what certain teams are aimed for and how I could see that folding out in the draft. So without further ado, let's get into it. And we're starting out with the Las Vegas Raiders, number one overall. I'm going to have them taking No, I'm just kidding. I'm having them take Fernando Mendoza, as is every mock draft that ever existed. If you have any doubt on who they're going to take, you haven't been paying attention to the process, but they're going to draft Fernando Mendoza. He's going to be their QB2 to start the year, in my opinion, and because I believe they'll want to start Kirk Cousins to start the season. But he's going to be their franchise guy, and you spent last year and maybe the year before loading up on pieces around him. He's going to have Ashton Genty coming in. Hopefully, he'll have some wide receiver weapons. He'll have Brock Bowers. He'll have an offensive line that I think is not great, but has been maligned more than it should have been. I think the Raiders are going to be at a pretty good spot. They don't have to start him right away. Kirk Cousins is a great mentor. Now that he's not getting paid millions of dollars and expecting to start, I think he'll be a great mentor for Mendoza. I think it's a great fit. Number two with the Jets. It's a shame as a Jets fan that there's not a quarterback here that would fit this pick because I think quarterback is by far the biggest need for the Jets. But I do like the idea of them stockpiling talent and having a great situation, especially on the offensive side of the ball, for that quarterback to be picked next year when they have their own first, they have the Colts first, and they have either the Dallas or the Green Bay first round pick. That being said, I think they go on the defensive side of the ball here. A lot of people are questioning between Arvell Reese or David Bailey. Myself, I've kind of flip-flopped in recent weeks, but I do think Arvell Reese is the pick here. I think as much as he is not a finished product as a pass rusher, I think his ability to be a linebacker is something that could also entice the Jets. I know you don't draft the linebacker second overall. You're drafting him for his upside as a pass rusher, but I think Aaron Glenn needs an impact defensive player, and his versatility, I think, could be exciting. I don't think Aaron Glenn is necessarily long for this job, but nonetheless, I feel like he's going to be a main target here, and I think he's who they've already decided to go after with the second pick. Arizona at pick 3, this is where the draft really opens up, in my opinion, but I think I'm going to have them taking a relatively safe pick, and that's David Bailey. Listen, I could see them going Jeremiah Love, but at the end of the day, I don't think they should commit to a running back when they have so many pieces that they need to fill out. They need help at pretty much every position, and their pass rush was not very good last year. Bringing in a guy like David Bailey, I think, would be a very exciting fit. He's a guy who could be an impact player right away, and I think that you kind of need that for the Cardinals, and then you have the option to really build for the future going forward. I think if you target a guy like Jeremiah Love, you're looking to compete in the next year or two. And I don't think that the Cardinals are going to be there whatsoever. Tennessee, I think, is an interesting point in the draft. It was all offseason that people thought that they were going to take Jeremiah Love, and I think now you're seeing in mock drafts leading up until the day before the draft that they could lean a pass rusher, whether that's David Bailey if he makes it there, Arvell Reese if he makes it there, maybe it's Sonny Styles at the linebacker position. But I can't get away from Jeremiah Love. Listen, Tennessee has a history, leading up until Derrick Henry, but you could go back generations of running backs for this organization that have really carried the offensive load. And the best way to, one, bring in a new regime in Robert Saleh and Brian Dable, but two, really take pressure off of your quarterback is to provide them, one, a better offensive line, but I don't think they're targeting that here, and two, better weapons And running back is a great way to do that. Jeremiah Love is not only a guy who could really eat from the running back position, really, take a tremendous amount of carries. He's a guy whose his pass catching ability is excellent. He's a great size for a running back, 6 foot, 212. I think his pass catching was underutilized at Notre Dame, and that's partially because of the really talented back behind him, who I might have a chance to go in the back of the first round here. But I think he could really be the focal point of the offense, take pressure off of Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward showed flashes, but the more you could take off of him and really let him develop and have a little less pressure on him, I think this offense could really improve year over year. You have Calvin Ridley, you have other wide receiver and tight end pieces. I think this could be an interesting fit, and Jeremiah Love could really be the focal point of that offense. The New York Giants at pick 5. With the Trey Hendrickson trade and them getting pick 10, I think they're really targeting an impact defender with this first one and an impact offensive player with the second one, assuming that both Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles are not going to be options at 10. I think they're going to go with who I think is the best player in the draft, and that's Caleb Downs. John Harbaugh's in there. This is a John Harbaugh draft. This is John Harbaugh regime. As much as they kept around their GM, I think he's not going to be there for a long time. I think he's there to kind of, steer the process, and he's already done a lot of the scouting. But Joe Shane is not the future for the GM position. I think they're going to bring in a Harbaugh guy within the next year and a half. And so I think this is a Harbaugh pick. Caleb Downs could be, the really heady impact defensive player. He could move up in the box. As I spoke about Arvell Reese for the Jets, I think Caleb Downs could really be, a versatile player for them. And really, be the Kyle Hamilton of this defense like Harbaugh had in Baltimore. And I think it's just too good to pass up. As much as I think Sonny Styles could be a target, as much as I think an offensive lineman could be a target, you see whispers around Carnell Tate and Mekhi Lemon and Jordan Tyson. I think Caleb Downs will be the pick here. Next, that brings me to number 6 in Cleveland. I think the best talent at linebacker is Sonny Styles, and I think him slipping this far is too much for someone to wait for. If he makes it to 7, I can't see Washington passing up on him. And what better for a division rival to come up and grab him from this spot? Cleveland, I think, is a team that's desperate to trade down. I think they have their eye on some tackles later, including Spencer Fano, including Maui Noah if he gets to where they're trading down to, and including Monroe Freeling, who I think they're secretly really focused on. But they need help in a lot of places. And so if we could create a trade here with Cleveland and the Dallas Cowboys for Dallas to spring ahead of Washington, take the guy that the Giants have been eyeing but passed up on, and really get an impact defender. I've seen mock trades of the Cowboys giving up pick 20. They're not going to give up pick 20. If it's going to take pick 20, Cleveland's delusional, and that trade's never going to happen. Now, it could be 92, it could be 112, could be a third round next year. I'm not here to really say what the pick value is. Maybe it's a second next year. Let's put a second next year just to get this trade across, but I don't know what that is. But I think Jerry would be drooling over a guy like Sonny Styles, and if we look back earlier in the offseason, I think Sonny Styles could have been realistic to get to 12. With how much teams are keying in on him and how much he's risen up these draft ranks, I think they go up and they get their guy. And I love the fit. Washington at pick 7 probably was hoping Sonny Styles falls to them, but nonetheless, they need an impact defender, and I think they're probably better off getting Ruben Bain here. I think he is someone who has a really high ceiling but a really low floor. But at the end of the day, Washington, I don't think they're worried about his arm length. I think he's a guy who, even though arm length is a concern for a lot of teams, he was in play at 3 or 2 earlier in this offseason. There was thought that the Jets could take him at 2. And so I think the talent is there. I think we freak out a little too much about arm length nowadays, and we're seeing prospect after prospect really not matter, or their arm length really not matter, and them have success despite their arm length. I think that this will be a draft class for Ruben Bain Jr., for instance, Maui Noah, where these are two guys that, if the arm length is a concern and they still perform well, who cares, right? So I think Washington gets the pass rusher they're looking for. New Orleans at pick 8. This is an interesting one to me. I could see them going a lot of ways. I could see them going an impact defender like Mansour Delane, really shore up that defensive backfield. But I think the talent of Carnell Tate is too much to pass up on. You pair him with Chris Olave, both Ohio State wide receivers. You give another weapon to Tyler Shuck, who I think a lot of people are a little high on. I think he really showed flashes and was significantly better than I thought he was. But to say that he's definitely the franchise quarterback, I won't go that far. But nonetheless, you want to give him a chance to succeed. And you brought in Travis Etienne. You already have Chris Olave, who had a really, really good season last year. Every season he stayed healthy, he's been really good. And now you add Carnell Tate to that mix, that big body wide receiver. How big is he? 6'2", yeah, 200 basically. I think he'll be a lot of fun. Well, it's 6'3", it says in the description here. I think he'll be a lot of fun. And, as it mentions here, large catch radius. I think that's exemplary of a description. And I think that's really a great way to make a young quarterback's best friend is to have a great catch radius. And so I think Carnell Tate will be a really fun complement to Chris Olave and really bring out the best in Tyler Shuck and Kellen Moore's offense. Kansas City at pick 9. This is where I think Mansour Delane ends up going. You move on from your two corners in the offseason, one of which with the Rams. Well, I guess both of which to the Rams, but one via trade, one via free agency. I think you need a player there. And as much as the need is not corner, according to them, according to this draft simulator here, I think corner is the pick when Mansour Delane slips to them. If he didn't, I could see them going offensive line. I could see them trading back. I could see them taking a Jamar McCoy. I could see them taking a wide receiver. But I think Mansour Delane is the best corner in this draft, and so I think it makes a lot of sense to take him here at 9. The New York Giants at pick 10. If you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said Mekhi Lemon was the pick here or Jordan Tyson. I I really want the Giants to take a wide receiver to help, really take some of the pressure off Malik Neighbors coming back from injury. I think Malik Neighbors could be an incredible wide receiver. And if you could get, he reminds me a lot of Jamar Chase, and I'm not saying he's the talent Jamar Chase is, but I think he could end up being that. I think it's within the realm of possibility. And so if you paired him with a guy who becomes a T. Higgins, right? If you draft Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson and they end up reaching their ceiling, that would be a fun offense. And then you have Jackson Dart there, who I think is one of them, a bright emerging quarterback. But at the end of the day, more important than the receivers that he's throwing to, I think you need to keep Jackson Dart upright. The right guard position, I'm a little suspect of filling. And then you have Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle, who is only signed for this year. I think adding a guy like Francis Mauigoa or Spencer Fano and allowing them to play their best position, wherever that is on the offensive line, could make a ton of sense. As much as I would have liked Fano to be the pick here, I think they're really leaning toward Mauigoa. And that's where I'd have him. I think they're going to end up starting their best 5 guys, and maybe that's Mauigoa at guard, and then you shift him out to right tackle next season when Jermaine Illuminor is not brought back. But I think you just have to have an extra option there to be able to protect Jackson Dart, because that offensive line has not been as good as it should have been. Miami, pick 11. I think also taking best player available here, like some of the other the teams previously. I would have liked Mauigoa to fall to them just for the Miami to Miami connection, but nonetheless, I think Spencer Fano, similar story to the Giants. I think they need to run out their best 5 guys. They need to keep their quarterback upright, which it's obviously going to be what's his name that I'm blanking on that they signed from Malik Willis that they signed from Green Bay, at least to start the year, and hopefully maybe it's the end of the year if Malik Willis finds success. I don't hope that as a Jets fan, but hopefully for the Dolphins. And so drafting Spencer Fano and being able to, I think he has tackle and guard versatility, being able to just start your best 5 and protect the quarterback and really make holes for your best offensive player at the running back position in Devon Achane. I think that's important. Cleveland at pick 12. We're going to continue to run on offensive tackles, and Monroe Freeling is going to go here. I think he's a guy they're probably targeting all along. And so the trade back, being able to accumulate draft picks for the following draft, I think they land exactly where they want to be. I think they need help a lot of places, man, a lot of places. And so Monroe Freeling can come in and be a tackle for them on day 1. That's the end of the story. The LA Rams at pick 13. I've debated this one a lot, but At the end of the day, Devontae Adams is not getting any younger. Puka Nakua is not getting any more normal, if I'm honest. And he has off the field issues as much as his talent on the field is something else. Makai Lemon, I think, would be a fun addition to this draft room. You can really run a lot of three wide receiver sets, which they really haven't done a whole lot. They really love to have multiple tight ends on the field, and so you have the option for those extra sets now. And then Makai Lemon could be a guy that replaces Devontae Adams in the following year if you move off his contract, or the year after if his contract expires. So I think he's a fun addition to the offense. Gives Matthew Stafford another weapon that they could build around, and he doesn't go far. USC to LA. Baltimore pick 14. I really want to take Kenyon Sadiq. I really want to replace Isaiah Likely. But nonetheless, I'm going to be smart about this, and I'm going to draft Vega Ione. Um, they lost Linderbaum to the Raiders, but I think even before that, they could have used interior offensive line help. I think Ione probably sticks at guard, but could definitely play center in the NFL. It's a little rich for a center, but nonetheless, I think you have to shore up that offensive line and protect Lamar Jackson. I think that's the best bet. Tampa Bay at 15. It's not a Tampa Bay draft if they don't reach a little bit. Um, I think they need a pass rusher. And there's a million other positions they could go at, right? According to this, they need a guard, a corner, a tight end, wide receiver, running back. I don't buy running back whatsoever. Wide receiver, I could argue, Mike Evans. You probably wanted Carnell Tate to be here if you're Tampa Bay, but obviously it's very far for him to slip. I think edge is the way they go, and the question is whether it's Keldrick Falker or Keem Mesidor. I just have the feeling that teams are starting to not care about draft age, and Tampa's one of those teams. So I'm going to take Akeem Mesidor here. It's much as just a reach according to their rankings here. That's not the end all be all. And I think Tampa could just use impact defensive players on day one. As much as the age scares a lot of teams, I think the age could really help things in the fact that he is going to be more physically ready on day one, in my opinion. So I could easily see Tampa leaning this way, and I think they desperately need help at getting to the quarterback. It felt like Vita Vea was the only defensive lineman on that line at times last year. So I think Mesidor would be a real help for them. The Jets at pick 16. I think they're really targeting Omar Cooper Jr. if Jordan Tyson or Makai Lemon don't fall to them, but Jordan Tyson does here, and I think that's the pick. I think with their quarterback being Geno Smith and not having their quarterback of the future yet, they can afford to slow play Jordan Tyson, and if he needs a little additional time, that'll be fine. I'm not so worried about the injury history as some of them are really freak injuries, right? But yeah, the Jets need another weapon to pair with Garrett Wilson, the jersey I'm wearing right now. I mean, they have Brees Hall, but past that, I like. I really liked the flashes that we saw out of AD Mitchell, but he's I think really profiles as a wide receiver three. Um, and I think even Mason Taylor's flashes, I'm not sold as him on this team as a tight end one, nevertheless being your second weapon. So adding Jordan Tyson here after you get an impact defensive player, now you have two hopefully really good wide receivers that you could bring in your quarterback next year and really have some offensive success behind a line that I think is already very good. Detroit at pick 17. Speaking of offensive line, I think that's definitely where they go here. Caden Proctor making it to them is probably something they're happy about. At the end of the day, they need tackle help. And so I think that's an easy answer. Minnesota pick 18. Almost every mock draft I've done in my head has had Dylan Thieneman being their pick here, and I could easily see that. Jamard McCoy is certainly in the conversation. You can see here both the community and the AI model suggests Jamard McCoy over Dylan Thieneman, but I think Thieneman is the more likely draft choice. Either way, they need secondary help. You can see the draft needs here, safety and corner right there at the top of the list. They need secondary help, and Dylan Thieneman profiles to be a very good impact defensive player. Carolina at pick 19. I wanted to give Kenyon Sadiq to Baltimore earlier, but I think Kenyon Sadiq does not pass Carolina. I think they need an offensive weapon to pair with Tedro McMillan. I think Xavier Legette has been a disappointment, and I think as much as I think he could profile as a third option, You need that second option in Carolina. And so I think Kenyon Sadiq will be the pick here. I think he's a guy that back-to-back Oregon players here. I think he's a guy that as much as tight ends have really gone early in recent drafts, I don't think he has the talent of Brock Bowers or the talent of Tyler Warren, but he could still be a really good offensive weapon for Bryce Young, really make his job easier as he continues to develop, and hopefully this offense takes a step. And this team is, really competing for the division. I know they won the division last year, but they were below 500. If they're really competing for a division that I think is going to be better, I think Kenyon Sadiq would be a big part in that. Dallas is up again. They got Sonny Styles at the top of the draft. I think having Jermon McCoy fall to them is a win for them. I think Dallas Cowboys fans would be absolutely stoked about this draft here. Walking out with Sonny Styles and Jermon McCoy, you could slot both of those players in to their defense and really have them make a difference. I think Jermon McCoy is really an underrated player. Um, I think obviously the ACL injury that kept him out is why he's falling. I think frankly, a lot of people believe he's a significantly better player than Mansour Delane. I'm not one of those guys that kind of see them as somewhat equal. And the injury history allows me to say that I'd much rather have Mansour Delane. But I think if he comes back, you know, the player that he was projected to be, Jermon McCoy and Sonny Styles would be an excellent, excellent 1-2 punch to add to this defense that desperately, desperately needed help last year. Pittsburgh at pick 21. Listen, I think Pittsburgh is targeting quite a few positions. I think they could go wide receiver, but I don't see them thinking they need a wide receiver as much as people say they do. I think the fit could really be offensive line. But at the end of the day, I think they need pieces for the future. And I think as much as Aaron Rodgers probably doesn't agree, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers know that they need future development. And so I think they could be very, very willing to trade back here. The question is who they trade with. And I think the best wide receiver on the board is Omar Cooper Jr. I spoke about him potentially being a fit for the Jets if Jordan Tyson didn't slip to them. And I think a team could make a trade up here to get Omar Cooper Jr. He's a guy who I think could be closer to those top three wide receivers in talent than some of the guys he's going to go around like Denzel Boston. And so the question is who's looking for an all around wide receiver that would be in the back half of this first year? And I think it could be Buffalo. I think they could see a situation where they'd want to jump ahead of the Chargers and make this trade. I think they're in win now mode. I think they want to make Josh Allen's job easier. And so let's set up this trade here. We have Pittsburgh and we have the Buffalo Bills. Going from 26 to 21, it's not a far trade back for Pittsburgh. I'll say they give up a third next year. I don't know if that's good value or not. I'm not here to make the value of the trade. I'm here to just move people up and down. And I think they do, and I think they come up and they get Omar Cooper Jr. here and add a wide receiver weapon that Josh Allen desperately needs because ever since Stephon Diggs left, I think he's been looking for that number one weapon, and I think Omar Cooper Jr. is probably the best talent they've drafted since. So I think it's a great fit. The Chargers at pick 22, I think would have definitely considered Omar Cooper Jr. here, but I think really they should be smart and take an offensive lineman. Considering the interior of that line was disastrous last year, and your tackles are not very healthy, I think much like the Giants did, much like the Dolphins did, I think drafting Caleb Lomu, a guy who could profile at tackle and be that insurance swing tackle, but really could start at guard week one, I think would be a very smart pick for them to help keep Justin Herbert upright. Philadelphia at pick 23. It seems every year they walk out with an SEC defensive player that really probably shouldn't have slipped this far. And Keldrick Falk, I'm high on actually, but he slips to 23 here. I think that's going to be where they go. I could definitely see them going wide receiver, especially if they move on from A.J. Brown. Maybe that's a guy like Denzel Boston. Could definitely see it. Concepcion, I just don't get the feeling that he's a Philly guy, but could be for sure. But I think Keldrick Falk instantly adds another impressive layer to that defense. Cleveland at pick 24. I think they go Denzel Boston here. They help shore up their offensive line instead of taking a wide receiver early on. Now they add a guy in Denzel Boston who I think would pair really well with um, Jerry Jeudy in that wide receiver group. And you have Fannin obviously in the tight end position. Like it says here, he's your X. I think he profiles as a number one. I think his upside is there. I think he has a little bit of a lower floor than some of the guys taken before him, but I think Cleveland could swing for the fences here. And I think they could feel really good about this draft class, getting Freeling and Boston. Chicago at pick 25 could go a number of different ways. Wouldn't be shocked if they go wide receiver, although I think that's definitely not the play. Wouldn't be shocked if they go offensive line, but I think defensive line is the fit here. Um, I would say Peter Woods is probably the best defensive tackle on the board. Um, would he be a great scheme fit? I'm not really too sure, but I think you get top end talent and you make it work. So I think Peter Woods could really be a great asset to them as a run stopper. Pittsburgh now up at pick 26. I think they still go wide receiver here. Casey Concepcion on the board. I think that could be a great idea. Pair him up with DK Metcalf. Give a good weapon to Aaron Rodgers. Um, Dynamic playmaker, 3 level threat. I think is a very accurate description. He's fun, yard after catch. Get him the ball. Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if he ever really improves at getting the ball out quicker, but I should say not getting the ball out so quick and letting a play develop. And so getting the ball in the hands of KC Concepcion, I think would be a fun layer to add to the offense that definitely needed something more than just DK Metcalf last year. San Francisco could go a number of ways. I think they could definitely go offensive tackle, but they did end up re-signing. What's his name? Oh my gosh, best offensive tackle in the league, probably. I'm blanking on. It's like midnight. Please forgive me for forgetting this man's name. What? Bear with me. But Trent Williams. Oh my gosh. Um, they did end up getting a deal done. If they didn't, I could have seen Ian Achor as like an insurance play here, but I think they go defender here with Bryce Duff's retirement. Um, I think TJ Parker could be the pick, but I think Cassius Howe is more of a fit here for the 49ers. Um, like I said, you need impact defenders, you need a pass rusher. Back to back A&M picks again. Same thing we had with Oregon earlier, and I know we had a lot. I don't know, I guess just one with Ohio State. I thought we had three. I think the 49ers could really use him, especially with Nick Bosa coming back from injury. Houston up. Houston needs to go offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. Blake Miller seems to be a guy they're really interested in, and I think that's where I'm going to go here. I get they need some impact defenders. They need to keep CJ Stroud upright, and we've been saying it since his rookie year, and their offensive line has only gotten worse. KC at pick 29. Here's a slot where I could really see them trading back. Hmm. What's their draft capital right now? Kansas City has 29, 40, 74, 109. So no, the shelf is not bare. Hmm. I'm going to have them sticking and picking here. I'm going to go TJ Parker. I think they could use a defender. I don't know if he's a Spagnuolo fit and have to, again to Clemson. Now the players going back to back. I don't know if he's Steve Spagnuolo fit, but I think they need more defensive pressure. Chris Jones is not getting any younger. Players they've added just haven't been like elite pass rushers. Thinking like George Karlaftis and such. I think TJ Parker has a ceiling that could be very interesting for the Chiefs. Miami at pick 30. I'm going to have Miami trading back. I think Arizona's going to end up jumping up here for Ty Simpson. There were already rumors that the Rams were targeting Ty Simpson, and they, to help bring in the next era of quarterback behind Matthew Stafford. Obviously, I think that's not likely where the Rams pick now with giving up pick 29 in the trade for with Kansas City. Arizona, I think now with Mike LaFleur moving over there, could definitely target Simpson as their guy for the future. They have Brissett, they have Minshew. You know, at this point, this guy can be a backup, and I have no idea what they end up giving up. But Ty Simpson could be a third string, really, like the Giants did last year, where they had Russell Wilson, they had Jameis Winston. So if that way, if Russell Wilson struggled, they wouldn't need to start Dart. They felt Dart was ready in week 3 or 4, whatever it was. Same thing Arizona could have. They have Jacoby Brissett as kind of the more established starter. They have Gardner Minshew as the backup, but they bring in Ty Simpson to be their quarterback of the future. Learn from two veterans who I think are really two guys who are regarded as those mentor quarterbacks. So not a better place to be. And I think he could be definitely a guy who really functions well in the Mike LaFleur offense. New England at pick 31. I think would have liked some of these wide receivers to slip to them, but they don't get that here. Listen, I don't know if this is actually true, but and actually what they're doing, but I think the Patriots really need to consider offensive line here. Obviously, Morgan Moses is a free agent. I don't believe he's re-signed, or maybe he signed elsewhere at right tackle. I think we're not giving enough credit to the left side of the line being a problem, and that's a separate conversation with their left tackle. But I think Maxi and Achor could be an addition that could start at right tackle right away. And if you need him, if your left side really struggles, you could bring him over to left tackle. But he's a plug and play right tackle, in my opinion. I think that would be a smart pick at 31. And then here we have the Seahawks at 32. Listen, I want them to draft a running back. I think Jadarian Price would be a lot of fun. But Avion Terrell has really slid here, and I think he would be a smart pickup for them, especially losing one of their corners to Philly. I think that makes a lot of sense. So that's my one round mock draft. I'll do a 33rd pick for the Raiders if I had to. Um, let's see. Can I see? I can't see the players. Let me pull it up on my other screen here so I can see. Um, I want to be able to give a player to the Raiders, so that way Raiders fans didn't come here. I'll say Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I don't know what's on the top of the draft board, but I think he's the best player available, just for the fun of it. But nonetheless, here's my first round mock draft. We have several pairs of back-to-back players. Ohio State from the same college. Ohio State, Oregon. Where else is there? Texas A&M, Clemson. I think there's a lot of picks that are exciting. I think some guys are slipping. I think some guys are taking a little early. Akeem Vezador might be the biggest reach for me here. Um, but yeah, that's how I feel from a casual's perspective. That's my mock draft. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Who is your team targeting? Who do you hope they target? Let me know what you think. I appreciate the support. Subscribe if you haven't already. More content on the way, hopefully. And best of luck to everyone in this draft. I'm excited. I'm excited for the draft. Draft season's fun. So let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate the support. Peace out.